then trying to arrest him in the future. So we will see what happens.
Because we could possibly.
However, what I think is quite important to notice as well is that he has the support of the. I see that even in Germany, that the people are on his side, and so now that obviously the case is going to blow up again, I think it would be extremely detrimental from a reputation perspective for the U.S. government to try to arrest him.
I want to throw in the comment that I agree with Jack Tron that Biden administration will probably try to take credit for his release, and I completely agree with that. I also wonder, as Trump's trial is beginning to unravel a little bit, if this isn't just an opportunity to try and project an illusion of fairness.
I mean, that's definitely a possibility, and maybe we can get some the audience to jump in on that one as well. Appreciate everything you guys are putting down there in that bottom right-hand corner, in that purple pill. Now, Naomi, when it comes to the U.S., you said you were a little bit surprised at the U.S. making this move right now, but we don't know if the U.S. made this move. We know that they agreed to a plea deal, but we don't know. And guys, to reiterate this a little bit, just because a plea deal is struck, and this man Julian Assange was being held in the UK, that does not mean that they ordered the release of Julian Assange. If it was up to the US, correct me if I'm wrong, Naomi, they would have had him extradited to the US years ago. The UK has not necessarily been following what the US has wanted to do, which is why I'm questioning whether or not the US actually agreed to release Assange in this case, or if the UK made that decision unilaterally because they heard a plea deal was being struck.
Nick,
is it possible that the US didn't agree to that?
Okay,
yeah, sure.
Right. But of course, the UK knows what the US has been up to. It's an ongoing, almost daily bloody debate between.
Why hasn't the UK actually listened to what the US wanted to do?
Because the team of legal people that represent Assange are in the middle of it, trying to make sure that there is some sort of balance and that the UK don't just take on board everything the US says and swallow it like little children being told off by mummy.
Yeah, Stephanie, go ahead and jump in.
Okay, so I looked at the plea deal Moneypenny found. It is signed by a deputy chief trial attorney in the National Security Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. So as far as did the U.S. agree to this, they're the ones bringing the plea deal to the court, okay? Reuters is reporting that he will, in fact, be at the hearing on Wednesday. It says, sorry, I have to scroll back up.
Okay, so he will be in the United States. He will be in Northern Mariana Islands in the United States of America.
Yes, so it says WikiLeaks showed him dressing in a blue shirt, like you said. It says he will return to Australia after the hearing. The WikiLeaks statement added, referring to the hearing in Saipan. So he's going to Saipan for this hearing, and there is a plea deal. And I think what the plea deal is saying is all it's establishing is that he did not have any clearance to be reviewing these documents. It establishes who Chelsea Manning is and where this information came from. And then all of the, aspects of, if you've looked at it, it talks about the counts. And so it alleges that the information was classified top secret, secret, and confidential. And none of these should be accessed by persons other than the appropriate people, right? And the one count is the conspiracy to obtain and disclose this information. It explains what that is, and that he is admitting that he committed this unlawful act, okay? And so this, like I said, is signed by a United States attorney. So this isn't being done by the UK. A United States attorney has agreed to a plea deal that will require him to be present in front of a judge to, when they do this, they bring the person accepting a plea deal in, and they have to admit to doing so in open court before the judge. and they agree they're guilty, that they may be sentenced by the judge presiding over the court, and the judge is the only one that can impose that sentence, okay? What this is saying is that he's agreeing to time served, is my understanding, which is approximately 5 years, which is consistent with someone else who was in some other similar situation. So the 5 years is fairly standard. So I think what we're going to see happen is that he is going to show up to this hearing in this random U.S. territory that no one who has ever gone to a United States public school system has probably ever heard of.
Yeah. So this now,
but real quick, just on that,
Stop.
before Moneypenny, we'll get back to you here in just a second. But before we do that, I want to go to TJ Roberts, who you have worked. You're on a trial lawyer. You've worked on many federal cases here. Am I right, based on saying that just because a plea deal has been entered, you still need the judge to sign off on this? Is there potential that if Julian Assange goes to the United States on Wednesday at 9 a.m., that the judge could reject the plea deal and take Julian Assange into custody? TJ Roberts, welcome to the stage.
no, the deal.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And it's
I'm sorry, the deal has been done. This is why he left the UK, because he.
Okay, but hold on, though. That's part of the question, Moneypenny. Is the deal actually done, TJ?
no, it's not done. Under American federal criminal law, judges have the right to accept or to deny plea bargains. That has happened in the past. There is a reason why Hunter Biden is looking at prison time right now, and it was because a judge rejected a plea bargain not too long ago. So this is not over for Julian Assange. I hope to God that this judge takes the plea bargain, because I badly want Julian Assange to be free to go home, to be able to not be tortured in prison for putting out information. But that said, that's wishful thinking on my hand. I'm here to talk about what the law says. I'm not here to talk about what I want to happen. Okay, I think we can all pretty much agree Julian Assange has been horrifically mistreated, but no, it's not done. Judges can reject plea bargains in the federal system, and in fact, they have rejected plea bargains in the past. I don't know what will happen. I'm sorry, I'm just now getting back from a county fair thing. Who is the federal judge? Does anyone know that name?
Stephanie, who signed the bottom of the document that you're looking at? I don't have it in front of me. I'm standing in a parking lot here in Florida.
Okay, so the document is signed by Sean and Anderson, United States Attorney, Districts of Guam, and the NMI. And there is also a additional name at the bottom that says Matthew McKenzie, Deputy Chief Jacques Singer Emery, Trial Attorney, National Security Division, U.S. Department of Justice. My only point was that this is specifically coming from the United States government, and TJ got to my point that, you know, he does have to appear before this judge, and this judge could completely throw it out. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't know. I feel like if you're going through all this trouble to make a plea deal with someone as high profile as this.
Okay, but the judge did not have any role in crafting this plea deal. At least that's how it would normally work, right, TJ?
Judges normally do not have a role in plea bargaining. At least they're not supposed to. They're supposed to sign off on something or reject it and give an opinion as to why the plea bargain is insufficient, and at least give some sort of like breadcrumbs of a trail for the prosecutors and defense attorneys to follow to find grounds upon which they can go for. Like, for example, I'm thinking about the Hunter Biden case. The judge talked about these various parameters for sentencing and immunity stuff and said, with this in mind, go work out a plea bargain that is consistent with this opinion. And they didn't do so. They went to trial instead. So I wouldn't really be able to give you I wouldn't be able to read many sheep's entrails about what's going to happen until I know who the judge is. Because, I mean, for like the Hunter Biden plea bargain, the moment I knew who the judge was, whenever I saw that immunity clause, I knew for a fact that judge was going to throw out that plea bargain, because my goodness, that it was a tough on crime judge who's no nonsense and could see right through that language. I'm not sure who this judge is. I understand it's in the Federal District of Guam, so I can look into the judges from there, and I can get back with you guys whenever I have that information.
We'll have hopefully we can just have this sent over by Stephanie. Stephanie, if you could just DM it to TJ, that way we can kind of knock that out a little bit and send it to me as well. That'd be very much appreciated. But in the meantime, Moneypenny, I know you were trying to jump in and I cut you off there. Go ahead.
That's okay. Right. Quick twist. Do you want this twist? Obviously, reportedly.
Of course.
First of all, a bit of a funny one. Kim.com has said he's just touched down and he's gone off to shake hands with him. Obviously, for those who don't know, Kim.com lives in New Zealand, which actually is not part of Australia, but is a.
Is he joking? Because that doesn't match up with the flight logs here.
Yeah, well, the slight twist is that the Guardian in the UK are reporting that the plane that leaves Thailand, where he is currently in a refuel or something, is not headed to Australia, because he is going to face the US court as part of the deal before he heads to Australia. Now, I do not have any other confirmation other than the Guardian reporting that. Let me just tell you why, okay? So from what I can read from the Guardian, the Independent, and the British media are reporting that Julian Assange's legal team, who have been in talks for quite a while now, as you can know, is in the High Court in the UK. So the High Court in the UK is the highest you can possibly go for a multiple bloody serial killer. So once you're in the US High Court, US legal teams have been talking with the UK legal teams, and Julian Assange has his own people, and they have between them basically agreed that the 62 months in prison that Assange has already spent in the UK will constitute part of him having served 62 further months under US imprisonment, which will be part of what has now been agreed, and this is written in the past tense in every newspaper here, that it has been agreed by the United States that they will deduct the 62 month sentence from what they are going to give him in the Northern Mariana Islands, and that he simply has to go there, basically attend, where he will formally plead guilty. The sentence will be given as 62 months, which has already been served. Then he will get on a plane and he will fly to Australia. That is what is being reported here.
Yeah, so we're researching in the background, trying to figure out exactly who this judge is, who they were appointed by, which president, and what sort of implications that could have.
So to clarify just what Moneypenny was saying, Reuters did confirm somehow through the WikiLeaks team that he is going to the actual court appearance. Like, that was on Reuters as well. So I don't know those other sources, but when Reuters noted it, they said they were told that by WikiLeaks directly. So I'm trying to find the post that they may be referencing in case it was like a tweet or something. So I'll keep tracking that down, but they directly referenced WikiLeaks as the source that he was going to the court hearing prior to going back to Australia, which makes sense. He has to appear before the judge.
Okay, there's another statement just come out from the Greens. The Greens party room has met discussing their deal with Labour, blah, blah, blah. The welcome news of Julian Assange's release and their upcoming motion on recognition of Palestine. This is the UK, because we've got an election coming up. But they have said that in the opinion of the Greens, that we all welcome this, and that it's good news, effectively, that the UK has overcome the US's bullying tactics, and hurrah, Julian's deal, his plea deal reporting says no one should judge WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange for accepting the deal. Now he will be safe and we can all sleep peacefully. There you go.
Thank you for that, Miss Moneypenny. And just to remind everybody, Julian is scheduled to appear before a judge in the Northern Mariana Islands tomorrow at Well, I say tomorrow because the time.
So, Nick, I have some
Hold on,
information
TJ,
on the
hold on.
judge.
Yeah. Yep. Just give me just a second. The time right now in the Northern Mariana Islands is 11:15 a.m. on Tuesday. He is scheduled, Julian Assange, to appear before a judge at 9 a.m. local time on Wednesday. So he has 22 hours approximately to get to the Northern Mariana Islands. And, so that could actually change where he's headed right now. I mean, he's going to go to Australia for a couple of hours and then head to the Northern Mariana Islands. It seems...
Australia. He's going straight to the Mariana Islands. According to The Guardian, this is reported by...
According to The Guardian, and according to Reuters, he's going to Australia, though. So we have to kind of figure out... We'll try to break that down a little bit.
Reuters said that the WikiLeaks statement said he was going to the court like literally first and then going to Australia.
Yes, I agree. That's what he's doing. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It says he will return to Australia after the hearing. The WikiLeaks statement added referring to the hearing in Saipan. It would make sense that he's going to go to Saipan first, go and do this hearing. Hopefully the judge accepts the plea bargain, and then he's going to get the 62 months served, which this is very similar to a sentence imposed on Reality winner, an Air Force veteran and former intelligence contractor who was sentenced to 63 months after she removed classified materials and mailed them to a news outlet. So it's consistent with previous sentences. So hopefully, TJ's been able to find this judge. Hopefully that will be sufficient, that the plea deal will be accepted, and that he can just get on another plane and go to Australia and live his life.
Okay, and yeah, before you do jump in, TJ, I want you to jump in right after this as well. And maybe you can answer this question. Why the Northern Mariana Islands? I don't believe that's necessarily where the quote-unquote crime happened. Why is he being prosecuted in the Northern Mariana Islands, TJ? That's an audience question that we keep getting over and over again.
I can pull the query on that right now, but the information I have...
First. Okay.
Right now, so the judge is Ramona Manglona. So she is actually the former Attorney General of Northern Mariana Islands. In 2011, she was appointed by President Obama to take the office that she has right now. So that indicates a decent chance that she's more open to plea bargains that are generally softer on crime. So that's some good news. The one case that I have from published decisions from her is a criminal case in which she denied a petition to revoke pre-trial release even after a criminal defendant had agreed to enter a guilty plea. So that seems to indicate further proof that she's less than inclined to be overly tough on crime, where she let someone who is pleading guilty remain free. So that's good news for Assange, actually. Now let me go back to Pacer and try to find some information on this, because by the looks of it, this seems like a favorable judge who would possibly accept this case. So that's actually that's a piece of good news for Assange.
No, but TJ, is there a pretty big risk and he may not have a choice here. Is there an inherent risk in Julian Assange actually entering U.S. territory, setting foot in the United States, which is exactly what he's doing here? To remind the audience, Northern Mariana Islands are a U.S. territory.
There's always going to be some sort of risk whenever you do that, obviously. The thing is, though, when a prosecutor offers some sort of plea bargain, usually that does come with some sort of immunity for other matters while you try to get in there. And in general, look, if I'm the prosecutor, I'm not going to try to go back on that deal, because if I do, it makes other criminal defendants less likely to work with me. So I'm going to look at these other opinions that I have found from her and to see if I can find the indictment and figure out how they parked this in the Mariana Islands. If you want to go on to other questions for others, Nick.
I figured it. He's looking for MH370 while he's over there. They're going to cover off 2 balls at once, yeah? Because it's in the middle of bloody nowhere. I don't know if anybody's looked it up on a map, but, seriously, it is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's way out there. I mean,
yeah.
you
But
talk Northern Mariana Islands, they're way out there. Go ahead. Sorry, there's a delay.
It's not going onto the US mainland. It's not going to be full of paparazzi. There's not an easy way for everybody to be there. That's why it's so sudden. It's a neutralish territory. If you look at Australia and the United States West Coast and you drew a line, it's pretty much halfway in the middle of the two.
Now, that's interesting. Now, TJ, I want to ask you this as well, because you are the Republican nominee for House District 66 in the state of Kentucky as well. So you are a politician as well as a federal attorney. So I thought I'd ask this question to you. When it comes to the debate on Thursday, is this something that could potentially be used by Joe Biden as a, to show off for the debate, or is this not politically expedient for him to do?
It would be difficult for him to show off on this, given that he was a part of the administration that pursued this case in the first place. Okay, he spent 4 years of his presidency doing everything he could to make sure that Julian Assange stayed in custody.
Vice president
overseas.
under Barack Obama, just to be clear.
No. I'm saying as president, he has spent 4 years fighting to keep Joe Biden and fighting to keep Julian Assange in subhuman conditions right now. As vice president as well, he spent an additional 8 years in prison. In the 1990s, Joe Biden was the author of the crime bill that made it to where we have much tougher sentencing at the federal level for crimes, whether they have a victim or not. So there's a whole lot of reasons why, why it's tough for him to do that. It might be, he might try to use it of like, well, Donald Trump pledged to free Ross Ulbricht. Well, I've actually freed Julian Assange. Yeah, but you're also doing it with with a guilty plea. You're doing it where he still carries a felony conviction on his record. And frankly, another thing that is interesting to me is that we're talking about the handling of classified documents. At the same time, the Biden regime is trying to put Donald Trump in federal prison, possibly for the rest of his life. So I think that even shows a bit of a double standard here. Look, I think that Julian Assange should absolutely be free, but I'd be lying to say that there's so many pitfalls to it. And I mean, listen, here's the thing. People hate paper straws because they fall apart and turn to mush about as quick as Joe Biden trying to put together a coherent sentence. So I'm not quite sure if Joe Biden even could string together English words to explain to America why Julian Assange being free is a good thing. Anyone who disagrees or agrees with me on that, on the politics of this, is more than welcome to jump in on it.
It's going to sound, if he does disagree, it's going to sound something like this.
Stop dribbling. No, this is wonderful. Having American fantasy.
Hey Nick, you have a lot of background on your mic there, buddy.
I'm trying to spark on a burger at the same time while I do this space here. TJ, if you can act on your co-host for just 5 minutes, that'd be awesome. But go ahead, Moneypenny.
That's what I was just doing. I was saying, if anyone else wants to chime in on the politics of this and whether or not this could help Joe Biden or hurt Joe Biden in the debate, I'd love for anyone else to push back on me or agree with me, whichever way. I always like agreement, but I also like disagreement.
TJ, I'll jump in just for a quick second.
Raj. in the UK, Nigel Farage is at the moment booming in the headlines as number 2 to our Labour Party to win this election, because the Tories, Rishi Sunak, have never been so badly hated before. This could be an attempt to almost support the Trump campaign with Nigel Farage, who has been behind Julian Assange right from the beginning, passionately saying that this was outrageous. Farage will be celebrating. Trump and Farage are necessarily joined at the hip across everything that Farage says at the moment in the UK. This is going to be another victory for them. Is this, moving forward, this is the sort of thing that shows US and UK cooperation. And maybe the US want to lose a bit of their Bolshevik bullying tactics, or certainly the impression that other people across the whole of Europe, not just the UK, currently have at the moment of this rather bullying United States, and make peace and see it to be make peace. And in the same time, win the love of the Australians and those a little further afield.
TJ, I'd like to respond to you. I think you put forth some very solid points and arguments, and at the same time.
So I'll be honest, I don't know much about British politics in that one, in that way. I remember Nigel Farage from the UKIP movement. I actually met Nigel at a Young Americans.
I don't think you could hear Daniel. You couldn't hear Daniel, could you?
No, that was
no,
Mike.
I could not.
That was Mike down below, Nick.
Oh, okay. All right. We brought Mike back up. Mike, if you can try yourself again.
Okay, so TJ, I think you put forth some very solid arguments as far as how this could or could not be utilized during the debate, but at the same time, I think we can agree that politics is a little bit of a shell game. Anything that can be used to distract from poor performance during the campaign or during the debate, I think Biden will utilize.
I don't know if there's going to be much that is going to be able to distract the American people from how badly he's going to perform at this air quotes debate.
Well, Daniel, I hear you loud and clear there, but so much of this has been pulled over our eyes anyways, or the wool over our eyes anyways. I think anything that can and will be used to, create an illusion of competence or to distract from any sort of points that were made on the Trump side during the debate.
I'll be sure to circle back with you when he craps his pants after like the third question from the moderator.
I'm going to be honest. I think they can put him on enough drugs to get through the State of the Union. They can probably put him on enough drugs to get him through a 2-hour debate that's going to be softballed in by CNN. Okay. I think that's a big reason why they want him to be drug tested. I mean, honestly, the number of drugs out there that wouldn't even show up on a drug test that would help with his cognition, the number of supplements. I mean, shit, you could give him Hupazine A and some alpha GPC. Let me see what else I got here in the cupboard we could send over there, right? Maybe give him some creatine. That'd probably help him out a little bit. It's the number of things that would fly under the radar of a drug test. It's all killing. It's all just a mirage.
Let's just say this. Nobody's drug testing the president of the United States, number one. Number two,
I'm just saying Trump keeps saying he wants Adderall. It. My only point is they got him through the State of the Union. Adderall will show up on a drug test. It's an amphetamine.
No one's drug testing him. Let's
okay, I didn't say they actually were. All I'm saying is that Trump has hinted at it, and that's, we want to talk about Biden not being able to make it through. He made it through the State of the Union, barely reading a script. I understand it's a little different.
I don't think anybody here disagrees with you at this point, but we're way off topic, so I'm going to jump back in here and try to put this thing back on the rails. It is 9:30 actually on the East Coast of the United States of America. We are about 21 and a half hours away from Julian Assange having to report for court in the northern.
Also, Nick,
Go ahead.
So, Nick, I think I have a reason for why they put this in the Northern Mariana Islands, and I could easily be wrong on it, but I'm reading the indictment. It doesn't actually have a jurisdiction or venue statement, but talks about how this was done in areas beyond the reach of anywhere else. It says, in an offense begun and committed outside the jurisdiction of any particular state or district of the United States. So they stated that, like, it's just a matter of, at that point, I think they're using. Look, I'm not a national security attorney,
just
so
be the closest place to his home. I mean, the Northern Mariana Islands are in between the mainland United States, the contiguous states, and Australia.
So that could be it. I mean, and that's part of why the indictment is interesting to me, because it specifically says, in an offense begun and committed outside of the jurisdiction of any particular state or district of the United States. So one thing I do know, I'm not a national security attorney. However, I do know the Espionage Act, of which the section in which Assange was indicted, 18 U.S. Code 793G, which is conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defense information. What that suggests to me is that they did that in order to make sure anywhere has jurisdiction. You commit an Espionage Act violation, there's sort of we call in civil procedure law a long arm statute, where even though you're not there, the court still has jurisdiction over you. In the same way, if you commit an Espionage Act violation outside the United States still claims jurisdiction over it. So they just put it in the Northern Mariana Islands, and if Assange and his attorneys don't object, well, that objection's waived. So, there's no problem at that point. So that's probably why it is. It's probably a mix of convenience, and also the offense began and was committed outside of the United States. So theoretically, they could put it wherever they wanted. So that's just some information there. One question for the speakers as well is one thing that I've been thinking of as well. One of the issues with being a felon in the United States is it comes with lifelong revocations of various civil liberties. I know Assange is based out of Australia, so to be a free man in Australia is practically to be a convicted felon in America. But I've got to ask: is America truly freeing Julian Assange whenever they're making it where the man has to live with
they also, this is a great point I was going to bring up earlier, because as part of a plea deal, there's probably going to be some type of federal probation on the table where he may not be able to serve that probationary period outside of the U.S. So he might have to, I don't know, it's possible he might have to live in the U.S. if he gets probation.
That's an interesting point, TJ. I mean, could they say that at this point? Could they force him to remain in the United States of America? I'm assuming they could.
So I haven't read the plea bargain, but if they were talking about remaining in the United States of America, they would.
Will that be public
information
before the hearing? Is there any chance of that happening? I mean, I guess there is a chance of it happening, but I mean, is it likely, or will that be something that would be read into the record on Wednesday?
When you tender a plea bargain, you file it with the court, so that very well could be made public. I'm not sure, but my understanding is like we already have information that it's time served. So that indicates at least some of it is public already. So I don't know, like, if there is a probation period, but even if there is a probation period, my concern is like there's a lifetime of civil liberties revocations that are made for convicted felons. And so that's one of my questions. Like, is Assange truly free with this conviction, or should he just be straight up pardoned?
Usually there's a post-trial period, a post-trial investigation by probation to determine what is going to happen afterwards. So it may be like a 30-day or 60-day period in which he's going to have to report after that to probation, so or parole, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's usually the case, but it really does depend on the specific case as well. So that's the thing of like, I'm hesitant to lock in and say that's happening for sure, because I don't want to say something's happening when it comes to a legal document I haven't read quite yet.
But I think that totally explains the geographical choice of the Mariana Islands again, because to me, from what I can see, and I'm not a geography expert, it's the closest US territory to Northern Australia. And yet it doesn't, threaten Julian with the going on the US mainland and facing all the populace and the media. Just to say, I put an article in the Nest, which interestingly is now using the terminology that today's release was Julian being released on bail. Under the agreement, he would go straight to the Mariana Islands for a past tense deal that had been agreed, effectively to sign it off, and then on to Australia. So we're now using the phrase in the UK press that he is out on bail currently at the moment.
Yeah, so Moneypenny, it seems to me he's going to be, he's still like facing the charges, or at least the conclusion of the charges in the U.S. So like this is all speculation. One thing I want to bring up is that he does wind up back in Australia. There is the Five Eyes agreement, which, for the rest of his life, he'll most likely have a shadow, if I were to speculate on that.
I just point out that we know he's done 62 months in Belmarsh prison in the UK, and every indication from the articles we've seen is that is taking as part of the US are going to put a 62-month sentence on, knowing that 62 months have already been settled and done. He's done his bit, but in a UK prison on behalf of the US, so he's already served those 62 months. To me, that looks like lawyers sitting around a table and saying, right, we want him to appear in the US, and the lawyers from Julian have said, no, absolutely no way, he's not going on the US mainland soil. They've reached an agreement geographically between Australia and the US, where the US holds the legal territory. And because he's already served 62 months and become a very ill person as a result of it, that 62 months is, by no means a coincidence that it is the same duplicated sentence that has been agreed, to our knowledge, by the court in the North Mariana Islands, which is what the sentence will be handed out, and therefore, one written off the other. By the looks
I would
of it.
agree with you, Moneypenny, and I would like to further speculate that if I were him, and I was going to reach a plea agreements are not often, it's a give and take scenario. Like, you do this and we'll do this. And it's back and forth between the lawyers and the prosecutors. And then they come to an agreement. So what would the U.S. want from him in order to come to this agreement is what I'd like to ask the panel, because it would seem to me it would be in the U.S.'s benefit, considering the charges, to ask for his silence. Now, would a guy like Julian Assange agree to that? Like, agree to not do interviews, agree to not disclose any other information he may have?
In order to get out of solitary confinement, though.
Right.
That he was in for 23 hours a day.
Julian Assange, Nick.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you get used to it or not, but it seems that, that's a decent question. Maybe TJ can jump in on an answer like that. Does it seem like it could possibly be likely that a prosecutor or an assistant U.S. attorney, whoever, to write into that plea deal, TJ, some sort of requirement of silence? Is that possible?
It's not out of the question. I'd say it's extremely unconstitutional, but I'd say that almost our entire plea bargaining practices are extremely unconstitutional. And we have federal case law that said that a prosecutor had the right to threaten to indict and prosecute a suspect's entire family if he didn't take a plea deal. I'm sorry, but that sounds like Soviet practices, right? So we have a fundamentally broken injustice system, especially at the federal level. So I find it difficult to say one way or another on if that's in there, because again, I haven't read it. Would it surprise me if they tried to twist his arm into that? No, it most certainly wouldn't. I would say that it's brazenly unconstitutional. Now, my thing is, I think it might genuinely be that they just want this issue off their back. There have been pressure from the dissident right and the dissident left. Jimmy Dore, who is no friend of the Republican Party, has been very critical of Obama and Biden for pursuing Julian Assange the way that they have. And in many ways, we can think of areas where Joe Biden has lost the far left. I mean, we could look at the Israel versus Hamas situation where Joe Biden has taken a soft on both sides approach. He's playing both sides, so he loses no matter who wins. And as a result, the far left that is openly pro-Hamas, they are furious with Joe Biden for not being on their side enough. We can talk about minimum wage hasn't gone up. There's been the anti-war left is furious with him as well. And maybe this is one of those things where, well, what if we throw the Julian Assange bone to them? You know, there's a lot of reasons why something like this could have come about beyond just trying to get Julian Assange to be silent. No one really knows what happened there until the plea bargain is put out there and is signed by is submitted to the court.
Do you think that the whole thing happening with Merrick Garland, who is the head of the DOJ, with these threats from the right to jail him for not producing these tapes, may have anything to do with this sudden release? Like, it's sort of smack.
I doubt it highly, and the reason why I doubt it highly is I do not believe Merrick Garland, one, has the spinal fortitude to call any members of Congress on my wing of the right and ask, what's it going to take for you not to hold me in inherent contempt? I don't think he'd be giving Thomas Massey, for example, a call to say, "Hey, dude, what's it going to take to get you not to vote to hold me in contempt?" I don't see that happening. But at the same time, who knows if there's people more on the dissident left who are upset with the Department of Justice still being practically the enforcement wing of the Nixon era crime philosophy that Joe Biden codified when he was in the United States Senate. You know, there's a higher than 0% chance that was the case, right? We don't necessarily know for sure. And that's one of those things is like, we're talking about a whole lot of speculation, but the one thing that I can say when you're talking about, was there an offer of silence in exchange for time served? Maybe. I've seen more outrageously unconstitutional acts take place, and I mean, we can talk about, say, my time as a January 6th defendant practitioner, right? There have been some cases I've worked on that area. One of the concerns that we have to tell our clients very often that if you don't take whatever plea bargain is put in front of you, the DOJ is going to turn around and they're going to indict you for even more severe offenses. That happens. And they have threatened to do so, and federal courts have held it completely constitutional to do so. I disagree with that. I think it's an outrageous practice. I think it violates due process. I think it violates at least 2 constitutional amendments. And that's one of the problems.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, well, it is now 9:45 on the East Coast, and let's do a little bit of a recap. And by the way, guys, bottom right-hand corner, give us your questions, comments. You can also hit that same button, that purple pill button, retweet the space. That would be very much appreciated for everybody here working behind the scenes, trying to get as much information as humanly possible. Now, Moneypenny, or actually, before we go to you, Moneypenny, Naomi, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
No, it's late where you are. Oh, perfect. Naomi, if you wouldn't mind, if you can give a rundown for the new people that have joined us, what are the events of the day so far that we've seen? The release now in the air. what are your thoughts on what's transpired so far? Is this a surprise to you? And what do you expect next? Just like a minute recap would be awesome. Then we'll go into discussion again.
So it's quite amazing that this happened all of a sudden. I do believe that it's for the elections. I don't know. Like I said before, I think that Assange has a very good reputation with the people as of right now.
Are you saying for the U.S. elections, to be clear? Or?
Yes, I do. I think it might be possible that the U.S. have an interest in releasing him because maybe it's also a distraction from something else, from major scandals that are occurring within the U.S. right now. Because it is a big deal for many people that Trump did not do anything in favor of Assange to benefit him, to release him possibly. And so it could potentially throw a bad light on him. That might be one theory why the US government has an interest in releasing Assange now, because the question we have to ask ourselves is, why do they have any interest in doing this plea deal now? There was no particular pressure from outside at the moment. And so I'm just wondering where this is going. If they try to arrest him now, that would cause a huge outrage internationally. I think that would be a terrible idea of the US government if they try to arrest him now. So what's in it for them? And I'm asking this question.
So you're asking what's in it for
well.
them now because of the timing here. It's not like they were. I mean, is it possible that the UK government could have come and say, "Hey, you're running out of time. Either you make something happen, or we're going to release him without your permission"? Is that possible as well?
What do you think?
Nick, I think that's highly
Monica?
unlikely, given that the UK is part of the Five Eyes.
The space is so glitchy. I'm sorry, guys. Go ahead, Mike.
I said, Nick, I find that highly unlikely, given that the UK is part of the Five Eyes. I mean, the intelligence agencies in the UK and the US work in complete synchronicity.
Yeah, but why did they refuse to extradite him to the United States to begin with?
Showmanship. That's all I can say.
Yeah, the UK intelligence, I'm pretty sure, does what the US intelligence wants them to do most of the time.
But it seems like that's not the case here. Moneypenny, go ahead.
Right. Guys, you may have heard me. I talk a lot in macroeconomic spaces. My first job after university was as an economist for Chase Manhattan, one of the biggest American investment banks at the time in the city of London. I want to give you a macro perspective on what's happened, okay? But this is just from me. This is not from any report or anything I've seen. It occurs to me that we had about 2 years ago, probably 2021, 2022, there was a tripartite military geopolitical agreement made between three countries, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. Those three countries came together in a military defense agreement to bring together united forces to be ready should anything happen in the South China Sea or around the Philippines or around Taiwan. And it occurs to me greatly now that those three countries that are the three countries involved in Julian Assange, there is no better timing than for those three countries to be on the same wavelength and for those three countries to be united, as we know already from what is happening in the Philippines before we even get to Taiwan, that the geopolitical timing and likelihood of some type of horrible potential military tactics and outbreaks of, dare I say, war, or shall we say, playing at war, because let's face it, they've been doing testing all around those areas for God knows how long. The UK needs the US needs Australia. The three of them together have got the South China Sea pretty much locked off, which they need, because at the moment the South China Sea is full of Chinese military drones doing swarm formations driven by AI that are cutting off 52% of the international trade routes that are taking the Russian oil to India and China and trading in non-dollar currency, threatening to take the dollar out. There is no other better reason than I can think of. The United States would suddenly want to be nice to Australia and the United States and win plaudit an award at the same bloody
Money
time.
Penny, you and Naomi bring up such a valid point, and I just wanted to add to it because it's something none of us have really considered. In that, all right, this guy's in solitary for so long. This guy had more information on more people of power in the world than probably anybody next to the intelligence agencies, maybe even more than them in some areas. So I think it's safe to assume that he had some cards that he's been holding this entire time, bargaining chips, we could call them, that, I don't think it's just, the U.S. government decided to let him go, which is part of it, obviously. But I believe that there's some information that he may have had that they wanted. That's something to think about. That may be influential in what's going on around the world now. Even, you never know. He also may have people who he gave certain, disclose now if I tell you to information. In the movies they always give somebody a packet, say if I die I'm going to release this. Well, this guy had buku amounts of information, so I just think it's something to talk about.
Also, NVIDIA, right? I'm going to make this connection because somebody has got to say it. NVIDIA and two other companies are currently holding up the whole of the US stock market, right? NVIDIA in semiconductor world is the only hope the US have staying in the semiconductor sector. They are totally depleted of resources. They are reliant on Taiwan for manufacturing. Malaysia have now turned their back on the United States and turned their back in terms of manufacturing all the plants and the resources, the precious metals that are held by China. There is over 160 billion US dollars depending on the US staying in the semiconductor marketplace. And at the moment, their only way of doing that is by ensuring that they have a hell of a lot of strength and support to absolutely go into that territory and defend Taiwan until the last bitter bit of blood has dropped, because it will mean the US economy and the US stock market, as well as the US dollar under the BRICS supremacy, which is now taking over and threatening, because there have been something like 3 trillion US Treasury bonds dropped off the market just in the last few weeks.
But what does that have to do with Julian Assange?
Because they need the Australian, UK, US military resources behind them when Taiwan gets jumped on by China, or when the Philippines, who are currently very active, unfortunately, in military perspectives, are trying to block the South China Sea to stop the trade route of the Russian oil that is the vast quantity that is going into the southern part of Greece, where it is being traded in non-US currency and wiping out the ability for the US tariffs on the oil, which is the biggest energy resource the whole world depends on. The US have lost control of their tariffs on oil trading, and the only way oil travels is by sea. So they need to command that South China Sea area, and they need Australia to do it.
Yes.
Well, Moneypenny, I don't know that Australia, wants Julian Assange free. I imagine that Australian intelligence agencies and U.S. intelligence agencies are on the exact same page. But having said that, I do agree. Whoever controls NVIDIA/Taiwan controls AI technology as well.
Yes, but what I'd love somebody to just really quickly, these are all valid points, but what do you think? Is it possible that Julian Assange held some cards that was able to help him in this negotiation with the U.S. government to get his release. Because when he walked on that plane, body language is like 90% of communication, and he looked pretty damn confident when he walked onto that plane. So I think the timing, all these things tie in, but I believe he may have had something, a negotiating tool, a chip, or whatever you want to call it, that he was able to put on the table.
Never know, ditched because the semiconductor marketplace that gave the US their route in through Freescale. That's possible. I mean, it would be amazing if it was, but I mean, it would be a bloody good card to hold back, wouldn't it? That he knew the US military took out a plane and 269 souls on it in order to get their captivity of the semiconductor marketplace back in 2014. And it's pretty ironic given NVIDIA are now holding up their stock market.
And Daniel, I would also add to that, well, hold on a second. I'll come back.
Joker, you got a good point.
If no one else is talking, then one thing I want to bring up about that, I mean, who knows? I mean, look, someone with as much information as Julian Assange, the fact that he's remained alive tells me that he has a dead man switch. I do want to get back into the BRICS issue with de-dollarization. Look, you'll see some countries getting off the dollar.
Well, I really don't want to go too far into that right now, but I want to go to Naomi because she's been following the story pretty closely and she has her hand up. So if you don't mind, sorry about that, DJ, but I don't want to go into BRICS right now. That's too far off in my opinion. Go ahead, Naomi.
Yeah, thank you. I keep thinking about what you said earlier. You said that couldn't it be possible that the UK might want to release Julian Assange? And my question is, what would happen if they did? If they had just released him? Couldn't the US persecute him somehow? Because if
if they did just release him, then he's going to get taken into custody here in less than 24 hours in the Northern Mariana Islands. So that's exactly what would happen at that point. I mean, if the UK released him without the permission of the United States government, he will be arrested tomorrow. I pretty much guarantee that.
I agree.
Exactly. And that's why I'm thinking that this can't just be, this couldn't have been an attempt from just the UK alone. So what I'm saying is the US is not responding to a potential threat from the UK that they might release him without their permission.
I would agree with that, and I just keep my gut just keeps telling me that this guy held information that affected a U.S. presidential election. So to think that he doesn't have information that could bring world governments to their knees, I believe he does.
Yeah, exactly. And so, TJ, if we could, actually, you're gonna have to give me a second here. Somebody else jump in for just a second.
Does anybody know where Edward Snowden is at the moment?
Russia.
I wonder how long he's going to be there before he hops on an airplane.
Daniel, circling back around to something that you said, I'm not exactly sure that he has a dead man switch, as TJ Roberts referred to it as, because there's just too much motivation for high state actors to flip that switch, so to speak. There's just too much on the line.
But how
he would put himself as a severe target. It's one of the reasons why Snowden didn't do a dead man switch. And then as far as your discussion as far as speculating all of these different ways that things could be going down, we could be here because it could be endless. The 4D chess probabilities and possibilities are just literally endless.
Yeah, but that one is a pretty strong possibility. And he was very timing conscious with the release of the information that he would release. Like, it was beyond the shadow of a doubt timed to a T when he would release stuff. So I just find it very hard to believe that this man doesn't know some stuff.
Okay. he would have had to commit it to memory, because there's no way on earth that he doesn't have a server. There's no way he has a server that has that.
That's my point, Michael. That's my point. Is he is the dead man switch. When in a negotiation, both sides must be willing to give something up. In any and every negotiation.
But he'd have to give proof and evidence. It's not just, he can't just recite from memory. Maybe he has memorized a bank vault number or something like that where evidence is hidden. But I cannot imagine that he had that type of. I suspect the surveillance of his entire life has been so thorough, it's unreal. Satellites have the ability to sit there and record 24/7 cities, and they can go back in history, just like the Wayback Machine can go back on the internet. Satellite U.S. intelligence agencies can go back in history, days, weeks, months, years, and literally just watch everywhere he went.
But bro, everything is not done. All files are not kept electronically, especially by a guy like him.
Well, like I said, the possibilities are endless, but that's just kind of my thoughts on it.
All right, so what I want to do here, it is 10 o'clock on the East Coast right now. We've been going for several hours now. I want to get some final thoughts from the panel here before we go ahead and wrap it up. It looks like Julian Assange is on a plane en route to Bangkok to refuel, and it looks like he will be going to the Northern Mariana Islands to stand in front of a U.S. judge in U.S. territory tomorrow, local time anyway, so about 22 hours from now, Wednesday at 9 a.m. local time. Moneypenny, I want to give you the floor, kind of let you give some closing thoughts here.
Thank you. So there's one person that Julian Assange would have told the truth to, and that is Stella Assange, his wife. His wife has just tweeted, and it has been broadcast here, and I DM her, that she is happier than she has ever been and that he is free. Now, given that, I think the deal has been made. It is being written in the past tense in all the media here. He is being seen as a man who is on bail, whose lawyers have reached an agreement that the 62 months that he has survived in the most horrendous conditions within a prison in the UK will count for a sentence of 62 months that the United States will be seen to have given him for what he has done on one simple charge, because if they were looking for anything else, there would be multiple charges all over the place. One simple charge, and the lawyers would have agreed there was no way he was going to come onto the mainland of the United States. But halfway between Australia and the United States is a small island within US mainland territory, the Indiana Mariana Islands. And I believe the deal is done, and I hope to God it is. But I think it's ultimately a convenient geopolitical military strategy that unites once more the US, the UK, and Australia, because let's face it, they haven't been getting on so well. And if the US need help at all now, the dollar is under the biggest pressure it has ever been. The US economy relies on three companies holding up the whole of the stock market, one of which is NVIDIA. The whole semiconductor marketplace is fundamental to the strength of the US going forward, and it is all too bloody convenient for me, this timing. Thank you. And thank you, Nick, for letting me speak.
Thank you so much for everything today, Moneypenny. Really appreciate all the information that you gave us. You know, we definitely owe you here. I'll give a few other people some time for some closing remarks. And Naomi, if you want to give some closing remarks, we've got a TJ, and then you know what? Oh, and then Mandy. Let's do that. Actually, let's do Mandy first. Go ahead, Mandy. Closing remarks. What do you think? All right, no, we won't. We'll go to TJ instead. TJ, wrap us up. Yeah, everybody's very shy and quiet tonight. TJ, final thoughts.
Look, Julian Assange did nothing wrong. Thank God it looks like he's going to be freed. We have to remember, though, it's not a done deal until the judge signs off on it. And we really do need to consider the reality of America's federal prosecutorial system. 97.4% of all guilty verdicts in the year of 2018 came from plea bargaining. There was a survey of 354 cases that were wound up with guilty pleas, 11% of them were completely false. DNA totally exonerated them. They didn't do it. This story of what we have with Julian Assange is just one egregious example that is luckily putting global attention to this breakdown of our justice system that largely comes from us throwing the jury out and letting our justice system go based off of plea deals. Because if you do a plea deal, you're always going to be guilty, even if you didn't do it. So let's take this as a lesson. And I mean, again, it's a shame this is ending in a plea bargain. This is a case that should have never been initiated to begin with because journalism is not a crime.
Wow, I agree wholeheartedly.
Damn right. Thank you, TJ. Carlos, give us your final thoughts. Lead us out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, absolutely fabulous space tonight. I really enjoyed all the entire conversation. And I think in closing my thoughts in regards to Julian is that for him and his family, and I've stated this numerous times, that I want the best for him, for Stella, the kids. This is what we all have wished for him and his future endeavors. And as it relates to the prosecutorial efforts that take place, is that it's not over yet, and let's just pray for the best for him and for his family. And I don't want to speculate anymore, but thank you for a great space tonight, Nick.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you being here. Marjorie Taylor Green, Press Release Parody. Appreciate you co-hosting, as well as Raws Alerts, Alpha Fox, everybody up here on stage. Naomi, Stephanie, Moneypenny, especially Kevin, TJ, Daniel, Carlos, Mike, Trevinson, and Mandy. Thank you all so much for being here. And we'll be back as soon as there's more breaking news. Come to us on Thursday night for debate coverage all night long. From start to finish, we'll stream the entire debate here. We'll try to get it on video as well. See if that'll work out. And we'll have pre- and post-debate debate. So you won't want to miss it. It'll be a damn good time. This is going to be a historic debate, if that's what you want to call it, quote unquote, debate with somebody.
All right, so that's kind of the end of that. I guess we could talk about this. Apparently, QAnon is taking credit for Julian Assange's release. I got a question for you. How did QAnon know he was going to be released? Because QAnon is the deep state. That's why. That's how they know all the information. That's how they know everything. If they're real, why aren't there already mass arrests? Why are we all suffering? Why is Lake and Riley dead? Why are there Mexicans coming into the country trying to kill white people? It's not real. QAnon is absolutely not real. I followed it as well. It was a complete psyop. It was not real. No. Yeah, they did QAnon. The same people, by the way, from the Khazarians. If you don't know what that name. The Khazarians, who originated in, currently, Khazaria is Ukraine. Now, you know why Ukraine is so important to these people. The Khazarians converted to Judaism. Okay, the Khazarian king converted to Judaism, and these same people went off destroying the world, creating Israel, using Israel to blackmail people, collect blackmail, taking over countries. Using our military for all their wars. They still fund both sides. Biden gave money to Iran just before he gave money to Israel, funding both sides just as usual, right? Okay, let's get rid of you. I remember you. Yeah, you're gone. Goodbye, Rain Lee, you stupid whore. Oh, by the way, Adam Tate is awesome. Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew Tate is awesome. Oh man, you should have just let that go, Rain Lee. Rain Lee worked so hard to get me to hate Andrew Tate. I didn't hate him, I just didn't care for him, right? But then she goes on continuing trying to get me to believe in flat Earth, trying to get me to believe in QAnon, trying to get me to believe all this bullshit. Israel's good. So now I'm like, all right, I love Andrew Tate now. Andrew Tate's the man. Every man, every boy should aspire to be Andrew Tate. That's how it is now. You see how that works? You should have quit while you were ahead, Rain Lee, when you had me convinced that Andrew Tate was blah and we could just we should just move on from him. No. You went on with all these other things and I'm saying, oh, okay, so Andrew Tate is a good guy, considering you support Israel and you hate Andrew Tate. Gotcha. Yeah. Rain Lee cried because Hillary lost. Stupid bitch. Anyways. Hello, Hogzilla. Good to see ya. Awesome. Yeah. QAnon's not real. I hate to tell you that. I was a follower too. Okay. Yeah. I watched all the QAnon videos by Justice Sather and James Munder. Okay. I watched them all. No, they're fake. It's fake. It's not happening. Okay. Yeah. Yep. I mean, literally here. Let me show you this. Here, let me show you Flynn. Let me show you Flynn.
That's Frank, man.
On the biggest QAnon channel, telling them no. There is no military operation. Nothing. Here we go. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, Frank. He be wilding.
Right. We are systematically and intentionally destroying our country by allowing this to continue on. And I can't sit here and go that these people are incompetent and they don't know what they're doing. Oh, no, they're competent, they're smart, and they know exactly what they're doing.
So do you think the military is watching this whole thing play? I mean, are they worried that all these people that are coming in?
What do you think? I mean, so stop,
okay.
Dave, stop.
Okay.
This is where I've had disagreements with things that I've heard you say and many others, because people go, oh, the military. What do you think the military, if you don't understand what the military does in our country, which abides by the Constitution, and
yes.
The Constitution is our military is run by the people who are duly elected. Okay, so if you want our military to act in a different way, then you need to go to another country, right? And the people that I've heard talk about this kind of stuff, they're foolish. They're foolish. They're thinking foolishly. This is not what our country is designed to have in terms of our military. Our military follows the orders of those who are elected over them. Okay, that's how we've been able to stay as a nation the way we've been able to stay. So when people go, well, the military, what should the military? Hey, the military should follow legal, moral, and ethical orders that they're given. If you find generals and admirals in the military that say, Mr. President, I can't follow this order anymore, even though it's legal, even though it's maybe ethical, my moral being, I just can't follow. It's like the forced critical race theory training that's being forced all the way down the necks of every single private in the military, or the idea that we're going to continue to have pay for abortions if you join the military, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that kind of stuff. That's a moral dilemma, and a general or an admiral or any officer can say, I'm going to resign my commission and I'm going to throw my stars down on the table and I'm going to walk away because I can't serve in the military that does that. But that's it. If our military starts to act in any other way, we got problems. We then do become a third world nation, like a lot of these banana republics that throw out, presidents and prime ministers and kings every 6 months.
Well, let me just, I understand what you're saying, but if there's an invasion at the border, let's just change it up. Let's say all of a sudden we had China. They were rolling in with tanks on the border. They were rolling in with military. I mean, would the military not react to that in some way, somehow?
Dave, the military will only do what it's ordered to do by duly elected people. That's why the president of the United States is elected by the people in this country, not only as the president of the United States, but the commander in chief. So he's elected and he's given the judgment by the majority of people in this country, like we've always had, for the most part through our elections. But no, the military does not act on its own. That's a major, major falsehood. And we've got to get people, anybody that tells you, well, the military ought to do something, all these dummies that say, oh, the military's in charge. The military only does what it is ordered to do by basically by the president of the United States, the commander in chief. So if there were hordes of tanks, lining up down in the docks of Panama, and they were going to come up from, we're talking China, or if the Russians started to attack across the plains of Europe, which is where we stood for the better part of 40 years, our elected official, primarily the president of the United States, can order forces to go and do something, can order our military to go do something. We don't want our military doing anything on their own, Dave, okay? No, that's not the United States of America. That's not based on our Constitution. That's more of the third world or the fourth world.
No, I agree with that. We don't want the military just going off and doing whatever they want to do. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and by the way, after this, you know what Dave did? Dave had all of his little soldiers go out calling General Flynn a traitor, calling him a communist, calling him a sellout to China and shit like that. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, this guy, this X-22 guy, okay, I'll tell you this: of all the Zionists I've ever met in person, okay, if they ever did promote QAnon, they would promote this guy's channel right here. So Albert, you got banned for that. I knew you were gonna get banned eventually, especially because you're Mexican. I was like, oh, this guy's a red flag already. Okay, he's saying he's Hispanic. He keeps telling me to talk about things that don't matter to elections and what's going on, something other than news. And then now you finally outed yourself. Wow, look at that. Let's go look what this. Let's go look at this real quick. Let's go look up. Let's see. Okay, this is something interesting. Oh, the Biba Dijon, whatever that is. I'll look into that eventually. Yeah, guys, they're on both sides of all wars. There's some Republicans, some Democrats. They're all Zionists. Pretty awful people. Anyways, and I guess that's it, guys. That's all I got for you. You guys have a good one. Yeah, have a good one. I will be doing a show tomorrow morning, noon Eastern, like usual. And I hope to see you there. See you guys. Bye. Have a good one.
Okay, now that Frank has gave his done his thing, man. Shout out to Frank. Shout out to those people, man. A lot of them were rambling, man. But I mean, Frank was, I don't know who those people are, but you had somebody from England, somebody from Australia, I guess, New Zealand. So, Julian Assange, man. This is weird that it happens right before the debate. People are trying to get the narrative now. Oh, Trump. Oh, you had all the time to free Assange, and that it'll look bad. First of all, Assange was arrested during the Obama administration. So they're the ones that started that whole bullshit. So, them trying to put the pass the buck on Trump is kind of like, it's silly. It's silly. But we'll see how it plays out. I'm not gonna make any predeterminations on this Julian Assange thing. I'm gonna wait until he goes to court and see what happens, because he's going to court tomorrow. But apparently, from what they were saying, they already have a plea deal ready, and then the judge just needs to sign off on it. If he signs off on it, then Julian Assange is good to go. Then he can go back to Australia and go back to his family and, basically live his life, you know what I'm saying? But of course, the woman was saying some interesting things. It just, I don't think it wasn't related to Julian Assange. That's why it was kind of annoying, but she's had some good info, but it's just like, what's that got to do with Julian Assange, bitch? So yeah. Anywho. Oh gosh. Anywho, I'm gonna find out some more information tomorrow. I'll probably do find out some more information tomorrow. She was nigga babbling. Yes, she was, Mac. She was babbling bad. I mean, she was babbling bad. I mean, the information she had was good, but it's like, what's that got to do with Julian Assange again? So yeah, man, you always got one in the crowd that always wants to sound all super smart and super intelligent and give you a bunch of useless information nobody cares. I mean, I wouldn't say nobody cares about, but it's just totally unrelated. It's totally unrelated to the whole Julian Assange matter. So it was just kind of weird, you know. That was just kind of weird, I thought. That was just kind of weird. So yeah, man. Oh man. So yeah, I got breaking news, man. Julian Assange is finally whew, those last words picked up. All right, man. Well, hey, shout out to Danielle. Daniel James. Okay, Daniel James, man. Uh, shout out to Mac. Shout out to Joker. Shout out to Twin. Shout out to Kelly, man. Hey, y'all. Yeah, breaking news, man. Thanks for the likes. I might do a show tomorrow. Like I said, this whole Julian Assange thing got me interested. So I'm gonna look up some more information on that. But all right, y'all. Thanks for the likes, man. I will see y'all maybe tomorrow. With that being said, man, we out, y'all. Peace.